You are in the jungle. I'm Matt Edwards. Thank you for tuning in as the Bengals get ready to take on the Green Bay Packers this weekend. I opened up the floor on Twitter to see what guests I should put on here, and Jed DeMuesy recommended someone who I don't know personally, but that guy said no, and therefore Jed has to come in and take the fall for him. Jed, thanks for being on for like the 12th time.
No problem. I didn't realize that was how it was going to work. I'll keep suggesting people I know will not do it if that means I get to come back on. So
no, in fairness to him, he said he would do it later. He just had a busy week. Did I understand correctly this weekend it was just you and the little guy?
Yeah, we're on the other side of that. My wife got in Monday evening, 5-6 o'clock. And so I had him basically from 8 a.m. on Friday until she got back. And I went to bed at 8:30 last night PM.
Okay.
And
nice.
slept until about 7:30 this morning. I was just completely fried. My wife was asking me, she was asking me questions that something about like our air conditioning and something. And I said, I just cannot, you can ask me tomorrow. I'm spent. Like I just have nothing. I have nothing left to give.
Okay. Well,
it's great because we're about to have 2 kids. So, I'm going to have to figure out some sort of reserve that I can dial into because in about a month, there's going to be 2 children in this house. So.
All right. I was just trying to make sure no one tried to pull you out on any dance floors this weekend while you were a lone ranger, but I think I can safely assume that did not happen.
And, I told somebody else, be careful on their bachelor party because things like that can happen to me as a father and a husband. The same thing can happen to someone who's on their bachelor party. So I gave someone else advice that I really can't follow, and it doesn't really have any sort of meaning in his life at all. So
that was one of the wilder things. We'll touch on Urban Meyer. Well, we'll talk about Urban Meyer a little bit later in the rapid fire segment. We will discuss my experience at Paul Brown Stadium last week. As you know, Jed.
Oh, yeah.
I kind of messed that one up. And we'll also get into a couple pet peeves I have with Bengals fans right now. We'll get to all that. But first, the Bengals, once again, Green Bay comes into Cincinnati. They've gone 13-3 in back-to-back seasons. They've lost in the NFC Championship in back-to-back seasons. But their biggest test of the Matt LaFleur era comes Sunday at Paul Brown Stadium. Jed, right now, I consider the Bengals contenders. I think it's fair to say that this team at 3-1, any team that's 3-1, you've got to say, all right, they should be in the division champion talk, despite how good Baltimore and Cleveland are. And based on how their defense is playing and the confidence we see Joe Burrow playing with as well. But I think it goes to another level if they can get a win on Sunday. You're talking about a perennial Super Bowl contender in Green Bay. Would I be too much of a homer to say that would turn from, I think this team can compete for the division, to where if they get a win Sunday, we can then say, okay, this team should be considered just as equipped as Baltimore or Cleveland to win the division?
Man, I don't know if I would go. First of all, I wouldn't put Cleveland in that same boat as Baltimore. I think the way Baltimore is coached, despite what you may hear from Vic Fangio, I think Baltimore is sort of separated from Cleveland a little bit in terms of what they've been able to do over the course of a long time. So I wouldn't put Cleveland in with Baltimore at this point, even though Cleveland is talented. They've got their flaws as well. But I think obviously a win over the Packers would definitely really get this fan base and would put this team in a different conversation for the time being. The NFL is week to week, but a win against Green Bay would certainly put this team in a different conversation than where it is right now. And I think one of the things that you have to look at with the Bengals this year so far is the things that we said they had to improve upon, they have. The offensive line, despite some early setbacks, has improved. And whether, I know Jackson Carman his PFF grade against the Jaguars was terrible, but he's a marked improvement over Xavier Su'a-Filo there. And, you needed to get some production from your second round pick, and they are. I think Jonah Williams is proving that if he can stay healthy, he's pretty darn good. And then I think the biggest thing that has gone in the Bengals' favor this year is their linebackers. Their linebackers have played so much better than their linebackers in the past, and they have tried so hard through free agency, through the draft, to kind of get a group of linebackers that can just play at a coherent level, and they just haven't been able to do it. And the way Logan Wilson has played has been remarkable, in my opinion. And you look at Jermaine Pratt and Akeem Davis-Gaither. I think all three have just been just a breath of fresh air. And when those things kind of turn for you, and the things that we talk about are going in the right direction, not to mention that, this against the Packers might be the first time that you see a fully healthy secondary for the Bengals. They haven't played with a healthy secondary. They signed Trey Waynes 2 off seasons ago, and he played his first game last week. So they haven't had what they've wanted in the secondary for 2 years. And if they can get fully healthy, if they can get some of those guys back, this could be a team that obviously is going to ride a 3-1 momentum, and a win over Green Bay at home would definitely, at least for the time being, put them in a different conversation.
I would agree with that. And then you've got Detroit up next, and you hope not to, let's not get ahead of ourselves, but should they pull it off this Sunday, a good opportunity in front of them in Detroit, and really a great opportunity. I'm a guy who has to think Joe Burrow right now is just putting in 12-hour days, because I think amongst those of us who follow this team understand how well he's playing. But let's say on Sunday, there's a game-winning drive by a quarterback not named Aaron Rodgers, and it's a guy wearing 9 for the Bengals. That frenzy that we feel around him in Cincinnati right now might kind of get mentioned more across the entire country, as more than just because right now I feel like he still gets put in that he can be good category. He's not yet, for whatever reason, he doesn't get mentioned in the same breath yet with Justin Herbert, who Adam Schefter last night, I know you didn't see it, Adam Schefter last night said he thinks Justin Herbert's not far from being a surefire Hall of Famer. Maybe I should have double checked and made sure that I heard that right, but I'm about 97% sure I did. Joe Burrow, kind of, what do you think? I guess you can just respond to what I said there.
Yeah, I think, and I heard some criticism too from, when you put Trevor Lawrence against Joe Burrow's arm doesn't look, as good, and that's fine, and that's probably true, and I think you could say the same for Herbert. But the one thing that Joe Burrow has proven to have is just an incredible resolve. His teammates believe in him to the extent that they don't question anything he does. His coaches believe in him to the question where he can audible out of something at the line of scrimmage and change things. There's a lot of things that he does that has resulted in this 3-1 start that aren't necessarily apparent when you flip on the tape. And that to me is worth more than a big arm. What he is able to do. And, Paul Dino wrote an article this week about how the locker room has changed, and now, Zach's got all of his guys in and all that kind of stuff. It's all about Burrow to me. I mean, it's all about the guy who is leading this team, and that's the quarterback on every team. And the way he carries himself and the way he has commanded that locker room, you can, a coach doesn't get a lot of the credit when a locker room's going well, because when you win, it's kind of everybody's thing. And a coach gets maybe too much of the criticism when a locker room isn't going well. But really it starts with who is the quarterback and how much does the team believe in him. And I'm sure they like him in San Diego. They like Herbert and all that. And, I'm sure there are other guys too that lead by example in the NFL. But I just think for whatever physically he doesn't necessarily have in terms of the traits that the eye-popping traits, the pass that Trevor Lawrence threw, where there was offensive pass interference, really, he called against Trey Waynes. I mean, that was a spectacular throw. And are you going to see that throw out of Joe Burrow? Maybe not, but he won the game. And if I'm Cincinnati, that what he has displayed to me is that this guy is just, he's the best thing that this city has seen in quite some time. And I fully expect, this team and this fan base to hitch, their wagon to his star for years to come. He's an incredible player.
Yeah, it'll be curious to see. For me, it's just interesting that that Justin Herbert has launched himself into that conversation, and Joe Burrow. And I get that Burrow only played 10 games last year, but if you watch what he's done and you watch, especially the team he's had around him up until this year, I don't see how. But give it time. We'll get into that. I'm fine with people outside of Cincinnati not believing in him, and we'll get to that in a minute. Here's what I'll say. Here's why I like the Bengals this Sunday, and we'll make our picks in a minute. I should say, here's why I think the Bengals have a better shot than maybe people outside of Cincinnati might think. Vegas has the Bengals getting 3.5 points. To me, if you're not a Bengals fan or someone who's as high on this team as a lot of us around Bengaldom are, that's a sucker's bet, right? If you're someone who wants to make a bet in Vegas and you're saying, oh, Aaron Rodgers only has to beat the Bengals by 4 points and I can take some money, give me it all day. And as you know as well as I do, if it looks easy, there's a reason. Vegas is trying to pull you in. That makes me think Vegas actually likes the Bengals.
Yeah, I think, and we'll see where that spread ends up. But yeah, I think that's obviously a Vegas line, a sucker bet, if you will. I don't know. I think if they're able to get this win, I think that speaks volumes. I don't know if they're quite there yet. I also think that you're not going to be able to mail in a half like you did against Jacksonville. So I just can't imagine that you would be able to do something like that. So I think hopefully this team can get healthy. Hopefully T. Higgins can come back. Obviously Joe Mixon seems to be day to day. I think you're going to need, everybody at your disposal to take down Green Bay, especially when you talk about Aaron Rodgers and some of the victories he's had this year. I think it's definitely possible, but I would definitely take the points if I'm betting this. I would take the 3.5. I don't think that you should bet the Bengals money line. I think maybe the points would be helpful.
Okay. I will ask you for a prediction. I did not tell you I was going to ask you that, so I'll give you a second to think about it while I give you mine. And for the Bengals fans out there, don't get mad at me. I'd love it if the Bengals go 16-1 this year. But guess what? That's probably not going to happen. I'm not going to be the homer who comes on here and picks the Bengals to win every game. I'll go Packers 26-24. I'll be glad to be wrong about that, and that would go in your favor, saying take the 3.5 points. Lindsey Patterson and I talked about it last week. We really thought the Bengals would get over that 30-point mark, but they just kind of laid a dud in that first half last week. This is, to me, it's still, as much as we talk about Joe Burrow and the offense, it's about this Bengals defense. And if you can hold the Packers under 30, you give your team a shot to win. That's where I'm at right now. Packers 26, Bengals 24. We still haven't seen this offense really click for 4 full quarters as high as we are on it.
That's correct. And there were a lot of people at halftime of that. And
if the Bengals don't get that stop on 4th and goal, they're down 21-0 in halftime. And that's a lot different than 14-0.
It is. Yeah. And there were a lot of people who were, clamoring for Zach's got to go and all that kind of stuff. So, and then now that they won, there's all these videos of Zach. Everyone loves the fact that Zach waited in the tunnel and, dapped up every player as he came off. So it can turn pretty quick. I don't think that this team is necessarily ready to beat the Packers. I wouldn't be surprised if they did, because I do think of, what I said about Joe Burrow being a gamer. Jair Alexander being out for Green Bay is huge. The Bengals really need to take advantage of that. They're probably their best defensive player, I would say. One of the best defensive players in the league being out, I think, with a shoulder injury. They're worried they're going to miss him for significant time. So I don't think he's going to play on Sunday. If they can figure out how to attack that defense with one of their best pieces out, that's going to be huge. But I do think that we're not ready for the changing of the guard, as it were, in terms of last second comeback quarterback. The mantle, I don't think it's going to be shifted here. So I'll say Packers 31, Bengals 21.
All right, 31-21. There you go. The Packers are 0-2 in this century in Cincinnati. Their last win in the 5-1-3 came in 1998 when Neil O'Donnell out-dueled one Brett Toby Favre. So
I remember the Terrence Newman. Was that game where there was like a fumble and he picked it up and
yeah. So the Bengals were down. I think the Bengals were down 24-27 maybe, and the Packers were like driving down the field with. It was late in the fourth quarter trying to put it away, and Favre got sacked, fumbled. Terrence Newman scooped it, scored it.
It would have been Rodgers there, right?
Yeah, I'm sorry. What did I say?
Did I say Favre? It's okay.
Oh, okay, yeah, it was definitely Rodgers.
Yeah.
And Scoop scored, and that was the Bengals was won maybe 31-27, something like that. But Rodgers was going down there to try to store it away, and it ended up turning on them. I was also at the game in 2005 when Brett Favre threw his career high 5 interceptions against the Bengals. And that was also the game where a fan ran on the field and stole the football from Favre, which Bengals Jim, I'm sure you're aware of on Twitter, a big super Bengals fan and seemingly a nice guy. I've never met him, but he's been posting a lot of throwback videos. And with so few games against Green Bay, I kind of remember all these moments, but that one in particular. Yeah, I remember Favre threw 5 interceptions, and Bengals beat Brett Favre and company in 2005. And that at the time was kind of a changing of the guard moment because, my whole life, the Packers and Brett Favre had been these guys who kind of like now you could expect them to be in the Super Bowl conversation every year and expect them to win that division every year. And the Bengals, my whole life at that point, hadn't had a winning record. 2005, they went 11-5, but before that, they hadn't had a winning record, I think, since 1991, maybe, or 1990. So that was a huge deal for me back then. And yeah, that was that. So
cool. And I remember the last game up at Green Bay, they got out to a big lead, didn't they? Like,
I was at that one too. They were up.
Yep,
they were up 21. I say it. People probably think I go to a million Bengals games. Aside from the Packers game in 17 or 16. Aside from that one and last Thursday, I had not been to a Bengals game as a fan. I've been to quite a few as a media member, but I had not been to one as a fan since 2008. But my dad and I, we really wanted to check out Lambeau Field. So we went there. William Jackson had the pick 6. Bengals were up 21-7 in that game, the hottest game in the history of Lambeau Field. And the Packers came back and won it in overtime. And I remember calling a head coach. I was that guy after the game because that was twice that year that the Bengals had 21-7 leads over good teams, Green Bay and Pittsburgh, and blew them both times. And that's been one thing I love about Zach Taylor that I did not like about Marvin Lewis was Marvin would sit on that lead. And not that Zach's had a lot of big leads, but he is not afraid to kind of hammer that nail in the coffin.
Sure. I mean, it didn't quite work out against Minnesota. I mean, you won the game. The Bengals won the game.
Right. Well, there's a difference in being aggressive and going for it on 4th down from your own 30.
Sure.
That was a little too far.
Yeah, that was hitting your thumb with the hammer as opposed to the nail. But, I'm okay with that. And, I think last year, and Zach Taylor's – the other thing about Zach Taylor – if you truly sit back and think about the first 2 years as a head coach, and I know we've kind of touched on this before, but that guy, I'm not saying some of his problems were self-inflicted, but the crap that he had to put up with, and sort of the guy who was there for the changing of the guard from the Andy AJ era to Burrow, and having to sort of mitigate that and sort of massage that era, that wasn't easy. Carlos Dunlap going off the deep end. Cordy Glenn going off the deep end.
Yeah, Cordy Glenn.
You had so many. Hey, where's Mackenzie Alexander? You're not going to believe this, Coach, but he's avenging his father's kidnapping when he was abducted picking cherries. Wait,
forgot about that. Forgot about that.
This guy has been thrown some crazy loops, and this team has determined that they are going to put him in a place to succeed in terms of what they're going to do in free agency, in terms of what they've done with the draft, and they've given him an opportunity this year to succeed. But I just look at it almost like this is his first year, because he has had so much to kind of navigate through. COVID, a year, you have a new quarterback, and there's no preseason games. He doesn't get any sort of reps against any teams before he's expected to take the field. There's just been a lot that's been thrown at him. Now, the hiring of Jim Turner is completely his fault, and he's rectified that. But, and I'm not a Zach Taylor apologist, but just looking at it objectively, he's gone through a lot of crap. And I know a lot of coaches, have some self-induced issues, one that we had mentioned before, but I think a lot of the stuff that was thrown on him was almost more than a random coach has to deal with.
Yes,
maybe not
1,000%. And an entire, yes, we'll say that. And that whole first season with Andy Dalton, when Andy Dalton kind of, the writing was on the wall, not an easy thing to deal with. Let's get into this. I said at the top of the show that there's a pet peeve I had. So last week on Friday morning, my guy, Colin Cowherd, praised Joe Burrow and then said some things that were not flattering about the franchise. Essentially, he thinks Joe Burrow is incredible and really good, but it's going to be hard to overcome what the Bengals are as an organization. And in my little Twitter, recommended Bengals tweets, just so many fans taking that to heart. And I kind of thought about this during the offseason, or I've thought about this for a long time. Can we stop caring what the freaking national media says about our team? I mean, if you're a grown human adult and you're sitting there getting upset about what some radio broadcast guy in Los Angeles thinks about your team halfway across the country, I mean, can we just stop with that? Not only that, I don't want the national media. I hate that phrase because it makes it sound like they're all the same. I don't want like a lot of praise heaped on the Bengals. I want Joe Burrow to have that chip on his shoulder. I want Zach Taylor to kind of be able to play that underdog card. Am I a jerk here? I mean, it just seems so stupid to me to care what really anyone thinks.
Well,
or is that just being a fan?
Well, I think, if we had the ability not to care what anyone thinks, I mean, I think we'd be way better off, person to person or as a collective. I think perception is reality on a national level. And if you want to dismiss what Colin Cowherd has to say because he doesn't know, then fine, dismiss it, but don't get angry about it. I think there is something to be said for this team has turned a corner in terms of what they've done in the past, but that's what they've done. They've turned a corner. If you've done something for so long and you've decided that you're going to change for the better, that's great, but you're going to need some time to kind of prove that you're actually going to continue to do that, as opposed to going back to your old ways in terms of, what they would spend in free agency, their relationship with the fans, all of that stuff that fans have now embraced, the Ring of Honor, all that kind of stuff. You're going to have to prove that this is sort of what you're doing going forward, as opposed to sort of a blip on the radar of what people know you for. I mean, there's a reason why people think the way they do about the Bengals, and it's not completely unfounded. And it's
They've not won a playoff game in 30 years. And people, they need to be held accountable. Look, I hope they win the next 10 Super Bowls in a row, but we can't sit here and act like just because they're 3-1 all of a sudden that things have changed completely. Marvin's last year, I think it was his last year, they started 3-1. How'd that end up? They went to Kansas City in week 5 and got absolutely stomped into the mud. And that's not going to happen this year. I believe in what's going on right now, but at the same time, it's like, man, you got to, my biggest thing is I do not want any praise from anyone. I want the Bengals to keep that chip on their shoulder as long as possible.
Yeah. And again, I think it goes back to Burrow. This is a guy who climbed the mountain in college football. And a lot of people had a lot of, he's a transfer quarterback. He couldn't start at Ohio State. How is he going to come in? I mean, he's heard all that before. He's heard all the noise. He turned it, they had an incredible season down there. He knows what it takes. And as long as he is the quarterback of this team, I don't think you're going to have to fight against a complacency or average. I think there's something in him that wants to be the absolute best. And regardless of what anybody says, positive or negative, outside of that locker room, I think all those guys know that they're sort of accountable to Joe, and as long as he's the guy, I think they're in good shape in terms of the noise.
All right, just had to get that off my chest. Thank you for playing therapist there for a little bit. Like I said, I was at this is the first episode since the Thursday night win. I just didn't have time to get one out after. When the Bengals have done a great job of the fan experience. That was my first game since 2008 at Paul Brown Stadium, going as a fan and not lugging a bunch of equipment around. I just want to tell you, because you and I had talked about this and you helped me rectify this situation, I accidentally purchased tickets in the handicap section, which I am not. It ended up being all right. The Bengals ticket office is very helpful in telling me that I wasn't a terrible person. However, Saturday morning, I sprained my foot playing tennis. So, things kind of come full circle. So we're in good shape now. Well, we're not in good shape, but I should have sprained it Wednesday.
I would also say, if you're calling the Bengals ticket office and saying, "Am I a terrible person?" you probably just should hang up the phone. I don't think they're required to sort of answer that question for you. And
I didn't know if it was like going to be insensitive to be, an able-bodied two people going in, but no, it was. No, that was not the case. There were plenty of people there who were able-bodied as well, and there was one guy there who kept yelling F Zach Taylor the whole time, which kind of felt wrong to be doing in a section where people had bigger things to worry about. But anyways, let's move on. Let's get into the rapid fire so we can get you out of here. Rapid fire, you know how it works. I call it rapid fire, but you can take as much or as little time as you want to answer these questions. Jed, let's start off with this. We talked about it. What happens to Urban Meyer over the next 6 months? Does he still coach the Jaguars beyond this season, maybe beyond this month?
I mean, my guess would be no. If you're asking me in a rapid fire setting, my guess would be this is probably it for him this year. If you're going to do that kind of stuff, if you're going to be that type of a distraction, you've got to win. And it doesn't, I don't think that they're going to be winning anytime soon. I think this was an attempt to sort of cut corners, really, in my opinion. I think the Jaguars were thinking, we're going to cut a corner here. We're going to bring in a guy who's won at a level. We're going to bring in a name, and that's going to kind of be it. And we're going to be fine doing that. Baltimore wins the Super Bowl. They hire the Eagles special teams coach. What are they doing? They're hiring John Harbaugh. No, they understand. They understood sort of how it works. And that was a great hire that nobody saw coming. And sometimes in the NFL, you've got to go off, the Rams are hiring this guy's 17 years old from the Redskins. Like, what are we doing here? So going out and hiring a big name doesn't necessarily mean that you're just kind of instantly in the conversation, and they're figuring that out in one of the hardest ways possible. I would be surprised if he was coaching Jacksonville next year.
Yes, I agree. And my thing is, and I've defended Urban Meyer, and I really don't care what happens. I defended him during the whole Aaron Hernandez thing. Like, some people thought he somehow held responsibility for the way he turned out. I thought that was ridiculous. And then the Zach Smith thing happens. And it's like, all right, you should have some more accountability here. And this one, obviously not as serious as either of those situations. But for Urban, who's a guy who obviously a great football coach, but you can't go up there at every press conference and preach accountability and leadership and then pull a stunt like that off. So we'll see what happens. But, how are his guys supposed to take him seriously after that? And then again, in that press conference, to bring up Trevor Lawrence, a 21-year-old's bachelor party, and be like, right. Yeah, like that, to me, that was the worst part of the whole press conference, was like trying to say, well, other guys kind of do this stuff. Yeah, a 21-year-old single guy on his bachelor party. And who knows that he did. He didn't get caught on camera doing anything, and it would have been a lot more fine if he had. It's just at some point, man, it's like I don't know. At some point, you got to stop believing the things that are coming out of his mouth. But again, it's just like, I don't care about the act itself. It's not the crime. It's the cover up, maybe, in this situation. So,
well, I think it's just the hypocrisy. I mean, you kind of touched on it. I think the hypocrisy to me is just sort of, it just with the stuff that happened at Ohio State and now this, it just kind of is he presents himself as one thing, and then he's, something different. And it's fine. I'm not saying it's fine what he did, but I'm also not saying that it's the worst thing in the world what happened this week. And I think we're kind of saying the same thing. I think, I certainly wouldn't. I would hope that I would never be in that position, put myself in a position like that. But I'm not judging him for that. But what I do think is that when you when you get up there, kind of like you were saying, you at some point, you've got to kind of walk the walk. And when you're that public of a figure in your own bar, it's just kind of a bizarre situation, bizarre thing for me.
Moving on, only one fast food chain will remain on Earth. Jed, you get to pick it, which is staying. And just as a qualifier, by fast food, it's a place that you would expect to have a drive-through. So like Chipotle, stuff like that does not count here. They'll stay.
Goodness gracious.
Didn't expect a real thinker here, did you?
I didn't.
Do you have a couple that you're deciding between, or is it just because mine was pretty easy? I'm going Chick-fil-A.
Yeah, that's a good one. I actually was thinking Popeyes. I think Popeyes is better than Chick-fil-A. So I'll go Popeyes.
You could be right. I just don't really have a Popeyes near me. So, but yeah, I wouldn't be mad about that either. Ring of Honor 2022 at Paul Brown Stadium. Who gets in? And by the way, I couldn't find out. Have they said, is it going to be 4 again? Is that the plan?
I'm not sure.
I don't know that they've decided.
The lettering was so small that I'm like, they better start, adding it up so it can kind of spread out a little bit. But
let's assume 2 get in next year. Who do you want in?
Marvin Lewis and Dave Lapham would be my picks.
Okay.
I think when the story is when the book is closed on the Cincinnati Bengals, I think a lot of people will recognize what Marvin Lewis has done for this team. And people that might not now, people that are caught up in sort of the fact that he fell short. I think the run that he had in Cincinnati was remarkable. Nothing short of that, considering what they had in the past. And Dave Lapham has literally devoted his entire life to Cincinnati. I mean, minus the 3 or 4 years where he played in the USFL for Donald Trump, his entire life has been with either calling games, playing for them. I think if you're honoring,
and I don't think people realize he was a very good player too. It's not like he was some average guard who just stuck around for a decade.
Yes. And the other thing I think people don't realize about Dave Lapham is how intelligent he is. I think you hear bits and pieces of his radio call, and he gets kind of very exuberant, and he's a big fan. But this guy had a scholarship to Harvard that he didn't take. He went to play at Syracuse. But I think a lot of people think, oh, he's just that Bengals homer. If he had a thought in his head, it would die of loneliness. No, he is incredibly intelligent. Anytime I've had a conversation with him, I've walked away knowing more about the game of football than I did beforehand. And I've had several conversations with him over the course of 7 or 8 years. And he's an absolute wizard. We used to do a telestration segment at Local 12 with him on Sunday, and he would have me pick the plays. He would text me what plays he wanted to do from that game. And I would pull the plays, and I would look at him, and I would say, why did he pick this play? Like, it would be a play that wasn't a touchdown, that wasn't a big play. And he would talk about just the little nuances and how it would set up certain things. Like, he is a brilliant football mind. And I think that gets lost on a lot of people.
I'll go Dave Lapham, Willie Anderson. Willie's a guy I think should be in Canton. I don't think Marvin's going to get in there until it's officially confirmed that he is done with coaching. But I agree, Marvin should get in there one day. You've watched plenty of both. Best NFL team in Ohio today.
Oh.
Real brain buster.
Well, I think what I'll say is
this makes me think you're leaning Bengals. The hesitation.
The Browns are way closer to their ceiling than the Bengals are, and both teams are 3-1. I think the Browns, there's not a lot of room for growth in terms of what they have on the field, and I think the Bengals have a lot of room for growth. I think I think the Bengals have the better quarterback. I don't know if that's really up for debate. I think that there were some throws. I think Baker Mayfield has done a fantastic job, and I don't want to be the Browns fan condemning him, but Baker, there's so little asked of him. And it doesn't seem like he, at least against Minnesota, and they won the game, but at least against Minnesota, there was so little asked of him, and he just couldn't, when he was called upon, he couldn't get it done. And, the miss to Odell Beckham was just unbelievable. And there were some other throws there too that just weren't very accurate. And this is a team that likes to run the ball 70% of the time. And, they're just asking you to put it on the numbers every so often. And he was, after the game, he understood. And I'm glad that he did. And, for a Browns fan to be complaining about wins is certainly a changing of the guard in terms of mindset. But I would say right now the best team is the Browns, but I don't know how long it's going to be that way.
Okay. Fair answer. Not very rapid fire-ish, but that's fine. Hey, I'm on your clock here. I can do this all day. I do want to point out real quick, I've been checking my phone because I do feel like this is a situation to monitor. Michael Lombardi says, according to 2 Jacksonville sources, there are many closed-door meetings happening over the last 2 days, and none of them have anything to do with the Titans. Stay tuned. This might get ugly. We'll keep an eye on that. Okay, I got to get you out of here in 5 minutes. What's the last movie you watched?
The last movie I watched.
Is it like Scrubble Bubbies or like a kid show, I guess? I didn't even think about that.
Yeah, it's been a while. What? Oh, you know what I watched? I don't know if this counts. I guess it counts. It was I watched it a couple nights ago. It was a documentary on, I can't even remember the name of it. It was on Netflix. It was about a hockey team that was taken over by the mafia. It was pretty cool.
I did not know about that.
Yeah, I'm blanking on the name, but basically there was this, the Hitmen. I think they were called that. No, I don't know if they were called Hitmen. Despite me not knowing anything other than the premise, it was pretty good. But they put this kid in charge who's like 19 years old, and he was basically the son of a well-known mafia person in New Jersey.
Untold, the Danbury Thrashers.
Yes, that's it.
Okay, cool.
That's it. That was good. That was cool. It was a fun watch. Yeah.
I'm glad you liked it. If your decision is up to you on whether or not Facebook goes away forever, are you pulling the plug?
See ya.
See you later. Totally agree. Yeah. It is
don't need it.
Detrimental to our society. Favorite thing about Zanesville, Ohio?
Ooh, I would say Sam Blackburn and JJ Mickey. Or a close second would be Adam Netos.
All right. Favorite thing about Cincinnati, Ohio?
Favorite thing about Cincinnati, Ohio. Here's what I'll say about Cincinnati, Ohio. As someone who didn't grow up here, I feel like spending 8 to 10 years here that I feel like I'm a part of it now. Like, it's a lot of people said, oh, it's so, if you didn't go to a high school around here, you didn't whatever. I think the city is very welcoming if you stick around. And
yes, I totally get what you mean. That's why they don't like me.
I think that I've kind of felt that. So, one of the greatest tributes people said about Tim Hedrick, or the former weather guy at Local 12, is that they just figured he was from here because they got to know him, and he kind of felt like family. And I think he was from Iowa or something. So to be considered, I'm sure people don't consider me that way, but for that is kind of the ultimate compliment, that you've sort of endeared yourself to a part of town that you're not from, to the point where they think that you are. So that would be something to strive for in this city.
You've been kidnapped, but they'll let you watch one sporting event from the past on repeat during your captivity. What are you watching? This was a tough one for me too, because the Bengals don't have a lot to choose from. So,
I guess the answer would be Game 7 of the 2016 Finals.
Okay, that's a good one.
Would be for me. I was in attendance for there was the 1995 game one, Red Sox versus Indians, where Tony Pena hit the walk-off home run to kind of get their postseason started. That would be another one I would want to watch. Geez.
Well, they're only letting you pick one.
Okay, yeah.
These aren't friendly kidnappers. These are mean guys.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, I would say probably the Golden State Cleveland Game 7.
Okay. Do you have a current pet peeve? This is the last one before I make you ask me one.
Current pet peeve.
Yes, and I'll say mine. Go ahead.
Okay. The one thing I've noticed recently that really just that boggles my mind is the tow when they tell you don't park here and they say that it'll be towed at the owner's expense. Who else would possibly be paying for your car? Like, why do you need to specify that I would have to pay if this car gets towed? I get it. So that one is one where it says tow at the owner's expense. Like, is there a sign somewhere that says we'll foot the bill? I mean, your car won't be here, but you won't have to pay for it. The other one that drives me nuts is I'm walking the dog and the kid is free estimates. Is there anyone charging for estimates? Is there anyone charging for an estimate nowadays? There's nobody that nobody is going to come to your house and say, oh, okay, I know, I'll fix that roof and I'm going to charge you $100 just to tell you how much I'm going to pay you for this. It's just not I don't think it's a bonus anymore. I don't think it's like a feature because I think everyone gives free estimates. Yes,
I think you are overestimating the intelligence of our fellow man. My current pet peeve would be, and I mentioned that I did a whole thread on this on Twitter, but the Bengals jerseys that are just so out of date. I mean, number 9 doesn't belong to Carson Palmer anymore. That is Joe Burrow. Like, I got it when Andy Dalton was still in town. At this point, it's disrespectful to wear a Bengals number 9 with not Joe Burrow's name on it. The amount of Jordan Shipley jerseys I saw, I mean, outside of the people you'd expect, like, look, I get we all love those scrappy slot receivers. John Ross had more receiving yards in a Bengals uniform than Jordan Shipley. And by the way, the thing we thought Jordan Shipley would be, we got it. He wears number 83 for the Bengals, so maybe upgrade to that jersey. And then, of course, the perfect jerseys. I mean, the guy's just such an incredible jackass, why you would want to wear his name around. And I saw one dude wearing a free perfect shirt. Like, get over it.
There's a Cleveland, I guess Guardians. There's a Cleveland Guardians writer for the Athletic named Zach Mizell.
Yeah, I know Zach. We went to Ohio State together. Zach? Yep.
Okay. He solicits old
random jersey sightings. Yeah.
Indian jerseys. So that's funny. So and like if you sent a Jordan Shipley, like the Indians equivalent of Jordan Shipley would not be on his radar. Because these are like really, really, really
guys who appeared in like 2 games. Now I'll say this: yes. I took a picture and I'll post it. I forgot to post it. I was standing in line to get a beer, and the guy in front of me was wearing a Thaddeus Moss jersey. So if we ever seen a practice squad guy with a custom jersey, I get he's an all-timer's son, but that's a nice 150 you're laying down there for a Thad Moss jersey.
There you go.
Oh, my favorite one I saw a Gus Frerotte Bengals jersey on Thursday. So that was my favorite. Okay, Jed. And then finally, I started this at the beginning of the season. You have to ask me a question.
I have to ask you a question.
Anything you want.
I'll take the cop-out route. And what's different about being married? What have you? Is there anything different?
No, and you're not the first person. Yesterday was my 1-month anniversary of marriage, and no, you're not the first person to ask me that. And I was big. I've always felt this way. Like, you need to do the things. Like, we've lived together for 3 years now. I'm a big practice before you play guy. So let's do a good dress rehearsal here for a few years. And no, nothing is really different other than I've got better health insurance now.
Well, there you go. And you can sprain an ankle and sit in whatever section you want with impunity. So good for you.
That's what I did. All right, Jed, thanks so much for coming on short notice. I asked you to do this last night. You're the man. You can follow him on Twitter at Jed DeMuesy. I'm on Twitter at Matt Edwards. Jed, anything else you want to say before we call it an episode?
I'm good. I appreciate it.
You're the man. Talk to you soon. It's In the Jungle. If you like it, give it a 5-star rating. If you don't, I don't know what to tell you. There's a lot of free podcasts out there. Go listen to another one. We'll see you next week.